So before you cut out, you said to get your guitar skills, you're working with a demon called Paul.
Right. And so graphic warning for anybody who's, afraid of blood or whatever, gets squeamish or whatnot. But at the time I was working a lot with blood magic, and I'll just read you briefly about what Paul does. But he's not one to be messed with. He's a king. He's not somebody you just go to. I've had a lot of experience by the time I started working with him. But anyway, the first principal spirit is a king ruling in the east called Baal. He maketh thee go invisible. He ruleth over 66 legions of infernal spirits. I'm not going to keep going. I don't want to speak to anything in the power. Not that I would, but yeah, this whole book is sigils and all of the different known demons as far as in Christian society or Christian belief and what they do, how to contact them, because that's exactly what Solomon did. But a lot of these beings, like I said, finding one that has your best interest at heart is impossible, and finding one that you'll even have remotely a good experience with is very few and far between.
So those blood splatters on the page, I'm guessing you read a curse and then sacrificed a bit of your blood. Is that what happened?
Well, a lot of it too, comes into when people ask, what can humans give to demons? Because when you start thinking about it, what do you give? You know what I mean? What would a demon ask you for, in return for something? What do they need from us? And the answer is nothing. But there's things that they enjoy. All right, so a lot of the offerings that I would give, yes, blood was one of them, but among a plethora of other things. There was a lot of times where I just sat down and meditated at the table, and what that would do is it would give energy. And I can't make anybody believe anything, but after those brief meditations were through, maybe 30-45 minutes, I was just so mentally, physically drained. It was unlike anything. I saw a lot of signs, that the stuff was there, and that kind of brings me to another point. I wouldn't have gone this far off the deep end if I haven't seen some shit. There's a lot that I've been through where science has completely left the room, but yeah.
Can you talk about any of that?
Yeah, I can talk about one of the experiences out of two. And this was somebody had asked me a question briefly earlier. As a matter of fact, I think we were talking about it this morning about the midnight game and those other games that
the Crossroads ritual as well.
I'm not gonna actually just for the sake of truth to this, I'm not gonna say exactly what the name of the ritual was, but it's something that's not too hard to find, and I advise against it. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? You think your audience would try it if I told them what it is?
No, I don't think so. I think that'd be too scary.
It's called the Raven Man ritual. All right, and this was the first ritual that I ever had any sort of profound holy shit moment from. And it didn't even happen to me. It happened to a very good friend of mine who didn't want to get involved with any of it. He was sitting outside with me, and like I said, at this time I was a weed dealer. I was like, I don't know, 15 or so. We're sitting in a little shed in the backyard, and we're talking, and he was interested in the darker side of things, but not to the degree that I was, where I was already working with him. And I told him what was kind of gonna happen. I had 9 candles. There was a couple other steps that you had to do before, when you laid it down and whatnot. And I explained to him what was supposed to happen. And we started smoking, and that may have had some something to do with it. But I've smoked a lot of reefer in my day. Let me tell you what. And I ain't never smoked something that made me see some shit like this. But I'm sitting there in the shed, and keep in mind there's no lights, it's completely dark. It's me and him. And this is, a big black dude from Chicago. Like, he doesn't really give a fuck about, a whole lot of this. He doesn't really believe in it yet. So we're sitting there, we're smoking, and he keeps trying to pass it over to somebody that's not there with us. And he looked at me finally, and he goes, "Man, I feel like there's somebody else here with us. And, you know, and I catch him looking around. I'm like, what are you looking at? He's like, dude, I keep seeing like something doing this around the room. And at that point, I kind of stopped because I was seeing it too. And I didn't tell him anything. You know, I wasn't talking about it. You know, I was used to this stuff, but I didn't want to speak it into existence so that, you know, but it was real now because he just confirmed it was real, you know. And so at that point, we just kind of sat in there. None of us really freaked out. And as soon as we went to go walk back into my mom's house where I was living at the time, that was, you know, a predominantly 100% actually Baptist household that had been blessed and whatnot. And as soon as he started walking, like right up to the door, when he went to cross the threshold of the door, he fell flat on his face. Like there was no hands to stop his movement. There was no like, turning to the side to avoid hitting his head. It was full like he ate the ground and just fell. And then he rolled over on his back. And I always remember the look. He was looking straight up, like at the roof, right? He wasn't looking at me. And he's just screaming, I can't see anything. I'm falling. I'm like, and keep in mind, like he's screaming at the top of his lungs. He's crying in tears. I've never seen him like this. And I stand over him and he's looking through me. You know what I mean? He still can't see me. I can see that he doesn't register that I'm looking at him. And you know, another couple minutes goes by and I'm just sitting there doing everything I can to comfort him and help him. And finally, whatever it was passes. And it shook him for a long time. You know, he eventually got back into working with stuff like that after he learned it was real, you know, but he had a real bad experience, you know, and you know, and it happens to some people, you know what I mean? When you don't know how to contact certain things and you don't really know what you're working with, you know, that opportunity does present itself.
So you kind of conjured up a demon in the house you were living where you were smoking, and then that demon appeared and then kind of possessed your friend?
Well, we didn't really see it. Like I said, it was one of those things where the shadow was only appearing out of the peripheral of our eye. You know what I mean? Where like we would only see it as we would turn our head or as we were moving, you know, kind of like a motion thing. I can't explain it, but you know, also the feeling in the room was, you know, and I relate to this a lot with the other experience that I really can't shed too much light on, but the feeling these things happen is just so otherworldly, you know, and it's so sad because, you know, if I were to videotape these events, you know, they could easily be faked, you know what I mean? Very easily, you know, with hardly any effort. You know, someone just has to sit on the floor and pretend, you know, because if you don't know the person and you don't know the energy that they give off, and, you know, when you look in my eyes and I look in your eyes, we have that, you know, like that understanding of kind of who we are, you know, you make that base. But when you know that person and then you see something like this happen and you look in their eyes that same way and it's something completely different, you know, with the energy in the room, and there's just, you know, it shuts people up and it really humbles you. You know, it really puts into perspective that there's things out there that are greater than you, you know, and when you have one of those moments, you know, I think it would be rude to fall back into that state of disbelief. You know, once you've had the, you know, the honor, that's what I call it. You know, it is an honor when these things happen to people because, you know, it opens them up. You know, that allows your mind to accept something that's, you know, so taboo and so crazy, but, you know, there's so much more to it.
You said that you played the midnight game once?
Yes, I did, and that also didn't go well. I didn't have any possession or any, you know, footsteps or demons in my, you know, but when I did it, I don't remember the whole state of everything that happened. This story is a little blurry. But I do very vividly remember at the end of the game that all of my locks were turned, and I had my mom had these like white marble statues of Jesus and Mary that had been turned around to face the wall. And, you know, they were covered in dust. You know, so if somebody would have moved them, you would have seen fingerprints or you would have seen some sort of disturbance that would have shown where someone had grabbed it to move it. And there was none of that. And, you know, we didn't have these facing the wall.
How much of a protection do you think that crystals or crucifixes offer a household against demons?
As much protection as the person has faith in it. You know, right. So if you're one of those people that wears a cross for decoration, then you might as well take it off and throw it somewhere because it's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's the same way with what I practice, you know, with my working that I have right here, you know, if I don't have that faith that it's really impacting something or it's really changing something, it's not going to work. You know, you have to have that shadow of it, you know, that beyond belief, you know, like as much belief as when I step, I'm going to touch the floor. You need to know that your work is going to work, you know,
Yeah.
and it's hard to build that. Like I said, that's why I called it an honor when, you know, whatever spirit touches down, you know, because it, it builds that faith, you know, it allows that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, it proves it for you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You don't have to sit there and meditate and try to find it, and you know, it's in your face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just confirmation, but there's more to this life than what we see and what we know. If you can see something, even if it's like evil, you know, but there's something more than meets the eye, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like if, you know, I would despise anybody that feels like we were put on this planet to work a 9 to 5. If you think that we were put here to be salesmen and tax you know, tax collectors and fucking internal revenue service agents, you've lost your mind. You know what I mean? We're here for a grander purpose than that, whether you like it or not. You know, and you can be glass half full, glass half empty all you want, but you know, there is a purpose why you're here. You know, there could have been a million other yous, you know, that came to be, and you were the one that made it through it and you know, came to be into fruition. You know, but yeah, man, you know, and that's why I study this stuff so much. You know, when we pass, we're not able to take anything material with us. So I want to learn as much as I can about that realm and what comes after and the beings that are going to welcome me while I'm still here, so that when my time does come, I can be comfortable during that transition.
How do you feel about DMT and things that get you into this psychedelic state? Do you think this is a like a opening to the spiritual realm or just a mind trip?
DMT is unlike any other psychedelic, and I've done quite a few. I've done, you know, a lot of mushrooms. I've done acid. I've done mescaline. The only one I haven't done yet is peyote. Um, but I've done DMT on 2 occasions, and I had some sort of spiritual connection the second time. But my problem with that is that while you're getting that spiritual connection, you're also getting the trip. You know, you're also getting these thoughts that aren't yours and these new weird ways of looking at things that, you know, you probably aren't going to be able to take with you because it's so new, you're not going to remember it. You know what I mean? So a lot of these spiritual encounters people have or claim to have while they're on DMT are, you know, probably misinterpreted, you know, due to the state that they were in because of the drug they took to get there. You know, so while yes, you can you can travel to other realms and things on DMT, the best way to do it is to learn how to do it sober through astral projection or to, you know, some way that doesn't involve changing your consciousness, you know, or altering your state of mind.
Yeah, right. I get you. So I'll run through some audience questions, and we'll there's quite a few, so just let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what's the craziest experience you've had with a Ouija board?
Man, so I've only had one, and it was enough to make me not want to play with them for a long time. I was at a park with a good buddy of mine named Jason, and we're sitting there, and right next to this park, right, we're sitting under this gazebo, and right behind it, for miles and miles and miles, is a natural wildlife preserve. Okay, so there's just, you know, miles of shit back there. Excuse me. So we sit there and we start trying to move the planchette, you know, and ask all the, you know, the stupid questions. Is anybody here? You know, what's your name? All that shit. And nothing happens, right? So we get about 15 minutes through, and we see 3 deer. Okay, it's about the afternoon time, right? You know, right as the sun's going down, it's still kind of seen to the woods, and 3 deer come up. I mean, very close to us, much closer than I've ever been to a deer. You know, and I've been hunting and whatnot. You know, they don't. They have a very keen sense of smell. You know, and the wind's blowing away from us, meaning towards them, so they smell us. You know, they shouldn't be right there. They just look at us, and we don't do anything. We don't really pick up on it as being some spiritual event. We're just like, man, those are some weird ass fucking deer. I wonder what they ate. You know what I mean? And we put the Ouija board away and we go, right. And we're going down. We're going to take a blunt ride. It's funny. All these stories involve me smoking, um, But we're driving down this road in a place called Pungo, Virginia, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I mean, it's real dark at this point. I remember looking down at my phone, and I think I was texting or on Instagram or something. And I just hear my friend scream at the top of his lungs, as loud as I've ever heard him scream. And then I felt the car just I mean, absolutely lose control. And so I get out, and he gets out. You know, my door is hardly working anymore, and there's blood all over our car. There's hair all over the car. So he hit a deer, right? And we're going probably 65. You know, so anybody who knows something about a deer accident, you hit a deer going 65 that hard, this thing's dead or paralyzed, 100%. And there was no blood trail. We looked on either side of the road for the deer, just because we would have eaten the deer meat. We would have, liked to have something to take from the experience, but there was no deer there. And, it was just one of those events that really sucked. And I let him keep that Ouija board, and he had to fix his car and everything. I mean, it was a weird event.
Yeah, that is crazy, man. Honestly. What do you think about the witching hour, like 3:33 in the morning? Have you heard about this? Is this a thing?
Yes. It is. One thing that people don't understand is that dates, times, lunar cycles. I'm not somebody that follows, astrology real well, or I don't believe if you're a Cancer, you're a Virgo, that you're all of those things. I don't believe that. But there is power in working with certain numbers when you know how to use them. You know how to implement them. And you know what you're doing. And really, witching hour isn't just 3:33. It's from 3 o'clock to 3:59. So that whole hour, the 3 o'clock hour is the hour typically where, paranormal activity is increased. I'll put it like this. The day is for the living and the night is for the dead. I do a lot of work at cemeteries and whatnot where I have to go, and there's things that I do there quite a bit, throughout the week. And sometimes I have to go during the day, and sometimes I have to go during, the night. It just depends on the work that I'm doing and whatnot,
Yeah, right. What are the signs of demon possession?
So there's 3 stages of how demons work. All right, it starts with separation. Okay, they're gonna try to coerce you and get you, by yourself away from, your friends and your family. They're gonna try to isolate you. And oh man, I'm trying to remember the 3 words that she used to explain it to me, because they came out real well. And then it's infiltration. All right. So after they separate you, they're gonna move in on you. Okay, they're gonna start. That's when you're gonna start noticing things are moving. Scratches maybe. Things of that nature. And then the 3rd stage would be possession. But in the time that these cycles move is over the course of years. The time it takes to isolate someone so far away from their family and friends that they can't turn to anybody takes a long time. I mean, give or take a couple years or months, depending on the person, but it can take a while. There are other signs, that you may be being attacked. A lot of people ask me, that they think that they're being attacked or that they're possessed because of thoughts that just pop into their head, or nightmares that they're having. A lot of times, 1 or 2 nightmares isn't, a demonic possession. Even sleep paralysis isn't, doesn't necessarily mean you're being targeted. Reoccurring nightmares a lot of times can show that something's messing with you. That, or you just have something, that's really perturbing you. But for the most part, people don't have to worry about demon, encounters unless you invite that kind of shit in your life. And I'm not talking about sitting here in a room and going, hey, demon, if you're here, do your work. You know what I mean? I'm talking like opening a book like that with the sigils and really learning your shit about what each demon wants, because each one is different. For example, Ball, he has everything that he likes down to his own plant. So his plant is a fern. His incense that he likes to smell is sandalwood. He comes during, when the sun is out. He doesn't like being called, during the night hours. So there's a lot that goes into him. He has his own planet. And they all have their own different aspects and things that you have to respect if you're going to work with them.
Yeah. I've heard that the saying abracadabra is like a spell. Abracadabra used in that context.
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Okay. That's just something I read ages ago. I'm not sure if it's true. Someone asked, what do you think about going vegan?
You know, I wish I could, because it's proven those, you know, people, they live longer, you know, and you feel a lot better. But I just can't bring myself to do it, you know, and even some of the stuff that that I have to prepare, some of the stuff that I have to do involves working with me. So
Someone asked, is it true once you get in you can't leave? You kind of answered this already because you used to work with them and now you don't, so I guess you can leave.
you can, but it also, it depends, you know, the deeper the hole that you dig, the longer and harder it's going to take to get out. So some people dig themselves a hole that they can never get out of, you know, and pacts can be made, you know. I'll clear this up real quick. You can't sell your soul. You know, a lot of times people hear that on the, you know, the Illuminati and whatnot. You sell your morals, and they videotape you doing some terrible shit. But you know, as far as sitting down and somebody writes a contract out in blood and you Satan sitting there in a suit, that shit doesn't happen.
That sucks, man, because when I was younger, I bought 2 souls for like $5 when I was like 10. So I feel like I can fuck up twice in this life and still be good, you know?
You can make pacts with things, but they aren't going to ask you for your soul. You know, they'll ask you for years of service maybe, but you know, it just depends.
Yeah, right. So is there a demon that's the most dangerous, or is it kind of like a spectrum?
I will tell you this. If you're going to, you know, like I said, a lot of it just comes down to tradition, because, you know, there's Jewish demons that my teacher, I have 2 of them. You know, not my godfather, but my other teacher. He was originally Jewish, and he still is, even though he's initiated into a bunch of other, you know, aspects of you know, ATRs. But the Dybbuk box, which I actually made a video on not too long ago, you know, I asked him about those, and he can make one, and he said that those spirits, those Dybbuk, are worse than most other demons, you know, that you would come across. You know, the stories that I've heard from those, you know, people wake up with actual scratch. You know, there was a story of a guy who had one, and he kept having these nightmares that this woman, she'd come close and she'd like make her way over to his bed, and then she'd make him look at her, and she would look up at him, and her face is falling apart, and she would gouge his eyes out. And for 3 days, when he woke up, his eyes were getting more red and more black and more sore after you know, things like that. You know, it has to be created. You know, it has to be invited. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned Jewish demons, because I've never heard about it until last night. One of my followers is from Algeria, and her family on her father's side put a curse on her when she was younger. What they did was they took her belly button and they put it in a mouth of their corpse. And every time someone complimented her, she got really sick. That was basically the spell. And then one of the people that was involved ended up telling the family, hey, this is what happened. So they went to the corpse and removed the belly button from its mouth. But she mentioned that the Jewish witches are really notorious. I didn't know that was like, I thought it was kind of like anti-Semitic or whatever, but apparently like they're really deep into it.
Well, yeah, and it's very underestimated. You know, there's a lot of power in that. But you know, I would say for the demons, that the 72 in the Christian aspect, Belial, is probably the worst one. It just in the fact that he's not the most high ranking or the most, you know, this or that, but he is just at his core, he is designed to lie and to deceive and to hate humans more than any other, you know, any other one. So if he were to be released, it would be more dangerous than perhaps, you know, some of the others of the 72.
What was the name of that one?
Belial, Belial.
All right. Is he a Jewish demon?
No, he's one of the 72 that I have in here. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up this shit. And I've worked with quite a bit of the ones in here too, just throughout different incursions, but where's he at?
You mentioned the eyes becoming blackened. There's two people I've met in my life where like they weren't trying to intimidate me, but just their stare and their like the aura in their eyes, man, it was like you could tell that there was something about them that was just off.
Well, you know, I believe that people can be born evil, you know, and I believe that we have a sixth sense, you know. So when you pick up on stuff like that, I wouldn't ignore it.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. Generally, if I have a bad vibe about someone, then they end up doing me wrong in some regard. But it's difficult because I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, you need to trust your intuition. What about voodoo dolls?
Funny you ask. I have a couple actually. Let me see. Where did I set them? Man, that's really awkward. I know I had them sitting over here somewhere. Anyway, I'll find them. What do you want to know about them? Because they get a really bad reputation as well. And most of the time, you know, before the 20th century, you know, nowadays, they weren't always used for negative. You know, they weren't typically used for symbolically hurting somebody or causing pain. A lot of times they can be used to attract money, to oh, matter of fact, I found them. Here, I'll show you. And I have actually both versions of the voodoo doll. I mean, there's plenty of versions, but the ones that you know that I have made for me. Typically, I'd like to make these, but one of the biggest ingredients in them is Spanish peat moss, and I don't have a whole lot of that around here. Now this one is designed for attracting wealth, you know, and colors come, you know, into a big role when you're looking at stuff like this. I'll show you the next one. This one has a pretty horrible smell to it. This is designed, I mean, this is, you know, typical black magic when people think about it. You know, you don't want to be linked to this one. I'm going to put it back because of how bad it smells. One of the ingredients that you have to use is a pretty nasty little root. Fucking stinks.
So with the black magic one, do you need to get someone's hair? Because like the way I've seen it done is like you get someone's hair and then you pin it, and then that's meant to, you know, cause an injury.
There's all kinds of ways. There's all kinds of ways. You know, a lot of times if I'm looking to do something, you know, I'll look to see if the person smokes. You know, if they throw away a cigarette ash, you know, you do that. Hell, you can see them walking in front of you and scoop up their footprint dirt, you know, the dirt from their footprint, and use that. You know, a piece of their clothes. I can come up to you and just, you know, if you're sweating, and swab the back of your neck and use that, you know, I mean, or I can find a picture, you know, if I can't get to you, I can use a picture. Excuse me. And, you know, there's other traditions that I won't get into today, maybe later on, that I don't need any of that. You know, and I can't even do this yet because I'm not initiated into it yet. But once you're initiated in, you know, your ancestral line aligns with theirs. So their ancestors watch over you and protect you. So you're able to do things that they know how to help you with, you know, in your work. And you can do a lot more, you know, to where just think of a name. And, you know, I've seen people be really, really sick for a long time.
So, like, when you get the dirt of a footprint or a cigarette butt, do you put it inside the voodoo doll? Is that what you do to connect it to the person?
Well, a lot of it comes through speaking, you know, and repetition and speaking, you know, it to life. You have to speak it into existence. You have to, you know, there's a certain. I actually. My teacher sells some of these because he, you know, that's what he does for a living. So he includes, you know, little how-tos for people who don't know how to use them. But I don't typically use these. Like I said, you know, it's kind of like a last, you know, like I said, I know how to do kind of my own work and whatnot, and I've got a lot of different work out right now. So I don't really use those. But you know, I like to, if I'm gonna do something, you know, target how I want to do it. But I don't really do a whole lot of bad work.
Do you feel any residual effects from working with the bad demons when you were younger, or do you feel like you've cleansed of that?
That's a very good question. I don't know who wrote that question, but that person needs a gold star, because that's a very,
I just thought of that then.
yeah. I've never been asked that question. It's a very good question. Actually, yes, I will say that I do believe opening myself up to the spirits and the, you know, the things that I did when I did, definitely impacted me in a way that probably changed me for a long time. You know, and most of the time you won't know it. You know, you won't feel them lingering on you because you're not ready. You know, you haven't experienced enough to know when they're actually there. You know, but it's very easy for them to manipulate your thoughts and your thinking pattern and your temper and your mood, and you know, and it'll make you a different person. It will.
Right, man. Well, that's all the questions. If you want to shout out your Instagram, your YouTube, I'll put that in the video. I'll link it in and I'll put it in the screen here. So
Yeah, man, you come check me out on YouTube FPS Vision YT and Instagram chill.pk. Huge shout out to my boy here, man. Hey, and I'm gonna put a shout out on my channel for you too, so people come, you know, look at your stuff. And yeah, man, I really appreciate it. If you have any other questions or anything too, man, feel free to call me or hit me up.
yeah, no worries, bro. Well, I appreciate your time. I think it was a great conversation. I've never really spoken to someone about this before, so I'm sure it was of interest.
It's very real, you know, and not enough people talk about it. You know, I think that what I want people to take away from this, you know, because at one point I was Christian and I was, you know, I had that too. But I want people to just feel connected to what you believe. All right. Most people wear that cross, like I said, for a decoration. They don't believe that there is a guy in the sky that watches over them. They really want there to be, you know, but they don't believe. They don't have the faith that he's there, that undying loyalty. They don't have that. You know, it's just, man, that'd be really nice to know that somebody's up there. And I hope when I die, I go to, you know, but they don't believe it. You know, and I'm going to be somebody that blindly follows a faith or a practice. You know, I feel I urge everybody to have some sort of connection to whatever you believe. You know, if you want to be an atheist, cool, do, you know, do your thing. But to the rest of you who have some sort of belief system or something, look at every option that you can. There's so much that will draw you and pull you, you know, and figure out where you belong, because it will change your state of mind and how you feel day to day.
So what is your view of, I guess, the afterworld? How would you interpret it in your own perspective?
That's a tricky one, you know, and I typically don't answer this question because you know, people when they ask this, you know, in a comment section or in a live stream are looking for hope for somebody, you know, like a dead ancestor or something. And you know, the fact of the matter is, it's so weird because I know that, you know, ancestors can be contacted and I've worked with them, but then there's sometimes that some ancestors can't, you know, for some reason or another, they don't respond. They don't, you know, they don't come through. Whereas some of them just don't like to shut up. Some of them just don't, you know, I don't know if they don't want to or if they can't, but you know, so it's hard for me to say, but you know, and I try. I've had a lot of people hit me up and ask me if I can help them contact somebody or you know, something like that. And I've tried, you know, with a lot of people, but I don't want to give anybody false hope. Like, yeah, 100% you can talk to somebody, you know.
Yeah, it really messes with people. My cousin killed himself when he was about 24, and my auntie is really Catholic, and she says this prayer every day. I'll put it in the video. I forget the name of it, but basically she says this prayer, and each time you say this prayer, 1,000 souls are like kind of released from this purgatory realm and released into heaven.
Well, I'll tell you this, with what I practice in voodoo, you know, from what I can talk about, Catholicism is very intertwined in it, and a lot of the Catholic prayers are used, and they really work. I mean, listen, for unlike any other tradition, they really work. And even when because my father passed from suicide, and I have my ancestral altar over there. So like for All Souls Day, which was you know, November, early November, All Souls or All Saints Day, you know, I have to sign him up and you know, do things to try to elevate him to get him out of that place, you know. But yeah, no, it's crazy. That stuff works, you know, and it's all what you believe in.
Well, peace. I appreciate the interview, man. I hope everything goes well for you, and yeah, appreciate your time.
Yeah, brother. Have a good rest of your night. Was it